Welcome to our final IIIT panel here at ISNA. And this panel is on higher education in North America, but with a qualifier here. It's not just about higher education in general, that's too broad a topic, but higher education as it concerns Islam and Muslim communities and Muslims in North America. And we have with us faculty and representatives from 3 fine institutions, and then the 4th institution represented by me. My name is Ermin Sinanovic. I'm Director of Research at the IIIT, the International Institute of Islamic Thought. Maybe you heard about the IIIT before. If you haven't, you had one of these small brochures on the chairs here. You have a sample of our publications here at the back of this room, and if you go to the exhibition hall where the books are and bazaar, you'll find our big booth with most of our publications there. So please acquaint yourself with the work of the Institute. One of the 3 pillars of what the Institute does, so it's publication, research, and education. The 3rd pillar, education, is very important, and it really is from the milieu from which the IIIT came about. IIIT came about from the founders of the IIIT came through NSA and ISNA and many of these organizations, and were the founders of these organizations as well. And so education was always essential to the IIIT. Now, here in the United States and Canada, so we call it North America to include, even though we don't have any Canadian institution here right now, but we believe that the issues are very similar and comparable between the United States and Canada. We have obviously now a growing Muslim community, a Muslim community that is now has a high percentage of members of the community that are born here in North America. So those that immigrated from overseas are getting smaller and smaller numbers, and overall speaking, this number of people who are homegrown, so to say, and who are now looking for education, authentic Islamic education within North American setting is increasing. And the IIIT has been involved with these efforts for the past few decades in several areas. One of them is establishing collaborations with already existing both secular institutions of higher learning as well as theological schools and seminaries. One of the probably most fruitful collaboration is our collaboration with Hartford Seminary, and we're going to hear later from Dr. Fayyal Salim, who is both faculty there but also directs Islamic chaplaincy program, which is really a program that IIIT contributed to from the very beginning and helped establish and sustain, together with the hard work of Professor Ermin who was here earlier today as one of our panelists and speakers. But also with other what you could call regular secular institutions of higher learning, including George Mason University and many others. Now, we also have another important segment within this educational spectrum here, and that is Islamic institutions or Muslim institutions, Muslim-based institutions of higher learning in the United States. And these include such institutions as American Islamic College, which is one of the first to be established, and it went through ups and downs, and alhamdulillah, several years ago was revived. It is here in Chicago, and we have Representative Dr. Shabana here, is faculty at American Islamic College, and she's going to tell us more about it. I think it is also interesting to mention that one of the founders of the IIIT, Professor Ismail al-Farouqi, was the president of American Islamic College in its foundational stage. So IIIT, as I said earlier, has links to many of these institutions and organizations, and so we see ourselves part of that. Now, the IIIT is not an institution of higher learning per se. We are not accredited, we do not offer degrees. We do, however, serve as an independent research institute that collaborates with and facilitates work of many of these institutions, and collaborates in academic programs in development, educational development, student development, and so on. We have our own educational programs that are not accredited, but these are very important. These include our summer student program, which is for graduate students. We have 4 students here who attended our summer student program this year. 3 of them are here, and Mohammed in the back. And they can tell you more about it. If you are currently a graduate student studying at any institution of higher learning in the United States and Canada, please go to our website, IIIT.org, under education section, go to summer programs, and you'll find more information about it. It's really a unique program, very intensive, 5-week in Islamic studies. We bring together some of the best faculty, not only from US and Canada, but from all over the world. So that is the IIIT's intervention in the process of higher education, our contribution to it, our way of helping other institutions to develop programs to serve Muslim communities and wider community at the same time. But it's also important for us to stress here that the IIIT also has interest in developing collaboration in academic programs. So we are not actively seeking accreditation or to start academic program under the IIIT umbrella, but we'd be very happy to collaborate with institutions of higher learning and joint programs in which IIIT would have significant stake in terms of academic development, curriculum development, and bring its resources to the table. We also help the overall higher education scene by offering research grants, both to researchers, faculty, but also to doctoral students. You can again go to our webpage, IIIT.org, and you can learn more about these research grant opportunities. We advertise these from time to time. We have residential fellowships as well. We are currently will be hosting this semester 2 resident fellows. Professor Ermin is going to spend semester with us, as well as Dr. Asif Padella, who is a medical doctor who does research in biomedical ethics, among other things. So these are all the ways in which IIIT contributes. But we also see that an important part of this educational process and our contribution to the development of Islamic education, higher education in North America, is to collaborate with these institutions in an organized way. So last year in November, we had a meeting at the IIIT with Zaytuna College, Bayan Claremont American Islamic College, where we discussed the idea of forming a consortium for Islamic higher education in North America. It would be a loosely based organization or a consortium or an institution, whatever you want to call it, that would coordinate among the participating institutions, but it would also hopefully eventually set standards for Islamic higher education in North America. Because if you're a parent and your kid tells you, you know what, I want to study Islam in an academic setting, they have several choices, right? They can go to a regular university like University of Chicago or Georgetown or Princeton, and they have very solid, established academic programs, but they are lacking a sort of faith-based perspective orientation that many people are looking for. If you go to, the other option is to go to a theological school or a seminary, and theological schools and seminaries allow people to have that faith-based perspective. At the same time, it may not be attractive for many people to think of themselves as graduates of theological schools and seminaries, because it may carry a certain way of thinking about it. Maybe people think it's not academic enough. So that there are issues as well. And then the third option is to go to these Islamic institutions, or Muslim-led, Muslim-based institutions, such as Bayan, such as Zaytuna, such as AIC, American Islamic College. And there, again, you have certain issues. First, the issue of accreditation, which Zaytuna, alhamdulillah, had solved. Bayan had solved it in a different way because it became part of a larger setting that's already accredited. And AIC is currently seeking accreditation, to my knowledge, and Dr. Shabana will talk more about it, but it has the authority to grant degrees. And that presents sometimes a difficulty for potential students. But also the question, am I going to get first-rate education? In other words, if I go to Zaytuna or Bayan or AIC or IIIT, is my education going to be at the level of Princeton, Harvard, Chicago, Yale? We would like our Islamic institutions to eventually reach that level and that we can compete with these. But at the moment, I don't think anybody could claim that we're at that level yet, not in terms of resources, endowments, money, ability to offer scholarships, libraries, grants. You think of it, obviously we are still, Islamic institutions do not have the kind of resources that some of these most prestigious institutions, and let's not call them, first tier, Carnegie one type, intensive research, intensive institutions. If those in higher education would know what I'm talking about, these classifications that they have. But also in terms of, even a well-funded state school would be seen perhaps more attractive for most Muslim students than an Islamic university, whatever that means, like Bayan, IIIT, and so on, or Muslim university. And so these are all challenges that we are facing right now. Challenges of funding are ever present for these institutions, the challenges of recruiting students, then the ability to offer scholarships and so on. So what we want from this panel, I gave you a sort of a background and IIIT's role in brief in higher education. And what we will ask each panelist to do is to tell us something about their own institution, to introduce their institution to us, and then also tell us what they see as some of the most important issues or challenges for Islamic higher education in North America. And to do that, each of them in about 10 to 12 minutes. And I know that's a very short time, but the whole session is 1 hour, and we'd like to leave some time also for questions and your contributions. I'll just conclude by highlighting this idea of consortium that I mentioned to you earlier, because we believe that it not only will eventually, hopefully, help us establish certain standards so that those who are going to these institutions of higher learning would be assured that not only they will be academically sound, but that the Islamic knowledge that they are getting in these institutions is also sound, which is far more important in the mind of many Muslims, right? That's one. The other important aspect of it is teaching of Arabic language. I think all of our institutions share a common concern that, about Arabic language, that it should be made one of the cornerstones of Islamic studies and Islamic education, that you really cannot call yourself an expert in Islamic studies unless you have good mastery of Arabic language. But eventually, at least another language that is used widely in Muslim majority countries, or a language in which there is a significant production, intellectual production. And this includes languages like Persian, Urdu, Turkish or Ottoman Turkish, Bahasa, Malaysia, Indonesia, and so on. These are some of the most widely spoken languages. So when it comes to Arabic language, we now have to depend on programs and textbooks that are developed elsewhere for different types of purposes, not necessarily for the types of purposes that institutions that we are talking about here, or the students that are interested in going to these institutions, have in mind. And I know that Bayan has been innovative in some ways in teaching Arabic language, but it would be ideal if we could bring together pool resources of these various institutions, instead of each of them sort of reinventing the wheel. We come together and put together a solid program for teaching Arabic language that will not only then become standard for these institutions, but may even be adopted at other institutions of higher learning. And I think that we do have a comparative advantage, because we do have in our community people who are experts in Arabic language who can develop us to do that. So I hope that also our panelists will address this to some extent. So with that being said, our first panelist that I will call on is Jihad Turk, who is with Bayan Claremont School, and he's going to tell us Bayan Claremont Graduate School, right?
Islamic Graduate.
What's that?
Bayan Claremont Islamic Graduate.
Islamic Graduate School, okay. So he's going to tell us a little bit about Bayan and what they do, but also how he sees this whole landscape of Islamic higher education and what he thinks are priorities and how we should be addressing them. So about 10 minutes. Thank you. Welcome.